Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's so good to see you. I wish that we could see you in person and offer you some coffee or some snacks this morning, but I hope you have your own warm cup of coffee and you find yourself in a comfortable place. We are going to start this morning by using a bell ringer activity. I'm going to drop it into the chat. This is an All About Me page. And we're going to give you 5 minutes to complete this. We encourage you to at least start it. You might not get all the way through it because we're going to use it for a task here in a few minutes. So enjoy this time to get those creative juices going and to fill out your All About Me section first. And then you can comment on someone else's All About Me page by dropping a friendly note into the speaker notes. And we also encourage you, as you finish both of those activities, to just reflect. Maybe you'll use the chat and reflect on what routines do you utilize to start your day with students. So we have 3 tools. Or 3 objectives. We'll go ahead and start the clock. And thank you again for joining us. We're so glad you're here with us this morning. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for taking this time to pause. We often don't give ourselves 5 minutes to just engage in a fun activity, so we appreciate you taking that time with us. Welcome to Cultivating Student Capacity for Independence, Part 2. My name is Anna Kay. I'm a behavior support specialist here with CNI, and I'm joined by my 2 brilliant colleagues, Rachel Horstman and Andrea Quintana. And we just want to extend such a deep bow of gratitude to all of you for the work that you do at your school sites and for your willingness to take time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate you. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at our agenda, our pathway for today. If you missed part 1 of Cultivating Student Capacity for Independence, never fear. You can find a recording of it on our YouTube channel, and there's also a link to that recording near the end of the slide deck. In that first session, we discussed cultivating opportunities for students to demonstrate competence in various areas in order to promote motivation, confidence, and ultimately increased independence. And today we're going to continue that same journey, but we're going to use community meetings as a vehicle to promote competence and independence. So we're going to be using the term community meetings rather than morning meetings, which might be the term we're all most familiar with. And that's intentional because we want to enforce that these meetings don't necessarily have to happen first thing in the morning, right? The main goal when we're using these community meetings is that we hold them at a time where our whole class is present, right? Even in the virtual sense, where we have our whole community together. So we're going to invite you to imagine that you are our class of elementary age students, and Andrea, Rachel, and I are your teachers, and we're going to dive into this community meeting together. Again, just to demonstrate what a beautiful vehicle this space can be to really cultivate that student capacity for independence. So we're going to focus on 3 components of a community meeting today. The greeting, the sharing, or sometimes called the discussion, and also a shared experience. So let's get started with our greeting. We know that the greeting is a ritualistic process in which each student has the opportunity to greet, acknowledge, and briefly connect with a peer. And today, for your greeting, you're going to have the opportunity to connect with a partner, a random partner that you may know and you'll be very excited to see again, or it could be somebody new that you have the opportunity to meet. During our greeting, you have 3 tasks. First, we're going to invite you to introduce yourself and where you teach. Then we're going to give you the opportunity to connect with that partner. We're going to ask you to share 1 piece of information from your All About Me activity, taking turns, each sharing 1 piece of information. And then you're going to leave your partner with some well wishes. And during this time, we're going to invite you to make sure you say your partner's name aloud before you wish them well. So if I was a partner with Andrea, I might say, Andrea, I hope you find lots of reasons to smile today. Or Andrea, I hope you eat a really delicious lunch. You won't have much time for this, only about 2.5 minutes. So we are going to send you on your way with your partners. Enjoy this time to connect. And then we'll meet you back here to talk about the why behind this activity. Welcome back. Thank you, everyone. That was so fun. I always feel like that kind of gives me a burst of energy, just having a little space to connect with some colleagues. So thank you. So as we have finished up our greeting for this morning, we're going to jump into the why. Why is this important? Why are we doing this? We know that this very simple routine can be a really important way to build an inclusive community amongst peers. In the morning meeting book, the authors explain that every child has the right to hear their name said with respect and warmth at least once a day. This opportunity to feel seen and validated is not or should not be a privilege for just a few kids, but rather an opportunity for everyone in your learning community. And we know without this space, without this intentionality, that some students may go all day without hearing their name said aloud by a peer or by a teacher. And the space also provides students with the opportunity to practice some social skills in a really safe, structured space before we ask them to generalize these skills into academic tasks like group work or presenting something to peers or even working out a problem on the playground. So what does this have to do with building student capacity for independence? How does this connect to our greater theme? Well, we know that students are far more motivated to participate and engage in both group work and independent work when they feel like a really valued member of a community. And this space, this greeting space, can provide that community, that sense of community, even in the virtual setting. And it can also help students to build social competence, which, as we're going to discuss later, is really a key component for independence. So tips for success. I won't read through all of these as you have access to the slide deck, but just some things to consider during your greeting. Making sure that we are modeling these skills for students. Now, I did not do that for you. I didn't give you some specifics, like maybe turning your shoulders to face your camera, or making sure you were speaking loud enough, or making sure you were unmuted. I didn't practice those with you, but if we were in our own classroom, we would give students really specific skills to focus on during this greeting. We would model them, we would give them lots of opportunities to practice, and maybe even provide opportunities for feedback, either from us or peer to peer. We might provide some scaffolding, like the sentence stems that you had on your slide. And making sure that we're kind of doing that gradual release of responsibility, where maybe it's more teacher-led in the beginning, with the goal that this would be entirely student-led later in the year. And there are also some links there at the bottom. We encourage you to explore ideas to kind of keep this greeting space fresh. After we have practiced kind of these very simple foundational skills and we know our students have that, that's the time to start kind of building in ways to make this greeting new and exciting. So we invite you to explore those on your own. So we're going to give you some think time, and we're going to encourage you to use a tool that Rachel taught us last week, this Google Keep tool. So at the end of each section, Rachel, Andrea, and I are going to give you this think time, this brainstorming time. And the reason we're giving this to you is because at the very end of our session, we are going to co-create a scrapbook. More on that later, but we want to give you some brainstorming time as we go. So we encourage you to use Google Keep, which is that little gold square on the right-hand side of your screen. If you click on that, it'll kind of scoot your margin over and it'll prompt you to take a note. And when you click on that and take a note, you can jot down 1 or 2 greeting activity ideas or greeting activity considerations. You're also welcome to write this on a piece of paper, but we want to kind of challenge you to use this Google tool. So we'll give you about 60 seconds. Again, we're just writing down 1 or 2 greeting activity ideas or greeting activity considerations.
I know you had shown us where to find that, but if we're not able to drag that sidebar out, what should we do on the Google slide?
That's a great question. So if you click on it, it should just kind of pop out. So it won't be directly on the slide. It'll be like on your margin on the right-hand side of your screen.
Okay. Yeah, I don't seem to have it, but I'll keep messing with it.
Right on. Thanks for your persistence, Corinne.
And you might easiest find this in the All About Me slides. So if you go to those All About Me slides, that might be a quick, easy way to find that little icon.
Thanks, Andrea.
Another option is to just go to keep.google.com and it will take you to the full website to use the same tool.
Thank you for your persistence. Thanks for your willingness to try out a new tool. And we'll come back to these later. And now we're going to jump into our next section in our morning meeting, community meeting, sorry. It happens to be morning meeting for us because it is the morning.
So our next component of a community meeting, I'm going to do it now too, is sharing. So this is a great continuation of the greeting. You can keep students in pairs and they can continue their discussion for the morning, or you can switch it up and switch your groupings, which is what we're going to do today. So you can see another way to accomplish this with your class. So we're going to be working in groups of 4, which works well for the sharing portion. But this portion of the morning meeting is meant for students to share important information about their lives. And this is also an important skill for our listeners as they build empathy and learn to practice giving comments or ask questions of their peers. And I realize my slides are out of order. Sorry about that. Here is our prompt for today. So we're going to go into breakout rooms again. And you are going to share a memorable moment from distance learning this year with the 4 people in your room. So we've got a sentence starter here, just like we did for the greeting portion. I'm just going to give you some think time right now so you can decide what it is you're going to share about when you get into that space. That way, when we enter our breakout rooms, the first person can share and we can pass it around the circle until everybody is done. And I'll give you about 2 minutes. So that gives about 30 seconds per person. It will feel quick. But before I send you off, like I said, I'm just going to give us about 30 seconds of silence so you can figure out what you'd like to share. All right, I'm going to send us off. I did set a timer for this so you can kind of keep track of the time and make sure that everybody has a chance to share before it's time for you to come back. We'll see you back here in about 3 minutes or so.
Welcome back as you're entering back into our main room space. Give it a few moments. I know time traveling can feel exhausting. Thank you for your willingness to participate in this activity. Welcome back. So
I hope that was enjoyable for you. I know I always appreciate getting to learn more about other people that I work with. And so you can see the importance behind the sharing component of a community meeting. Like I said, the classroom community starts to build relationships. They get to know a little bit more about each other and they start to gain respect for each other. When you learn more about somebody, you often respect them more and more. But this is also really important because it incorporates some social skills that our students need to practice, starting a conversation, maintaining a conversation, listening to somebody else speaking. And as your students get better at this, you can begin to incorporate academic skills. So they can start talking about their homework or their activities coming up for the day. You can challenge them to use vocabulary or cite words from previous days. But as you begin community meetings, you want to focus on that relationship building for students so that they can develop some of their social and emotional competence so that later on they can work to develop that cognitive competence. So just as with the greeting, we have some tips for success here to make this portion of your community meeting run smoothly. So you might think about the timing. For this portion, I made sure to set a timer because we want to make sure that every person has a chance to share. That's really important that everybody's voice is heard. And the think time so that you don't get into your breakout room stumbling over what you're going to say, thinking back. We want to make sure students are ready to share, that they have some time to prepare for that. Again, sentence stems are an important scaffold for many of our students, and sometimes it helps generate ideas. So that can be another way to make this run smoothly. And then practicing comments. Like I said, students might be so excited to share that they forget to be a listener. So we need to model and practice what it's like to be a listener and how to give comments to classmates. And then again, keeping it fresh. There's some ideas for different discussion prompts linked there, as well as a link to the Responsive Classroom website where you can find some other ideas to try out in your community meeting for sharing. So just like with last time, we are going to use that Google Keep tool again. If you're in Google Slides, it's on the right-hand side. And I'd like you to just jot down an idea. What is something you could try for a sharing portion of your community meeting? Or what's an aha that you had? We'll give you about 1 minute to jot down a note so we can return to this later. And with that, we are going to move on to our final component of community meeting.
All right. So the last piece of community meeting is a shared experience. Now, a shared experience can be anything that happens in your classroom that helps your students all have a common understanding. So the idea of a shared experience helps build a sense of community and group identity. We've all experienced this, and that helps us understand each other. That helps us relate to one another. It encourages active and engaged participation, as well as cooperation and inclusion, so that when you're part of a community, everybody has a say, everybody has an identity, and everybody has a place in that community to feel part of the group. This is also going to strengthen academic and social skills. It's going to give students an opportunity to build on things that they're learning through their core content, as well as find those activities and experiences to build on. So they can say, hey, when I did that activity, that's how it relates to this writing activity. They're going to get some additional strength through academics and social skills. And it's also going to really encourage cooperation over competition. Nobody's going to win the morning or the community meeting. That's not the goal of that. The idea is that everyone gets closer together, moves closer to common goals, and really helps each other and strengthens the relationships happening in the classroom. So remember to really encourage cooperation over competition to help the shared experience. And competition can be used as long as you're using it in a way to encourage group work. So think of it that way. Some of the keys to success for a shared experience are to really determine your time and plan accordingly. Again, because this isn't always happening in the morning, how much time do you have to make sure that the activity isn't rushed, that the activity leaves time for reflection, and that everybody has an equal share in participation, so that these activities and these shared experience can really build that community. Consider your students' learning objectives for the day and try to use those as a target for the activities that you're going to be sharing. If students are going through a shared experience that is outside of the goals, make sure that you also share those goals with your students as well, so that they know exactly what they're working towards. And then think about your students' strengths and challenges and build activities or shared experiences that both play on their strengths, but also give them a challenge to grow and to be part of something that might be new to them. So as you consider these ideas, we're going to try some shared experience today. Now, these are a little bit silly. They are going to require some participation and some movement. So the first activity that we're going to start today is a K2 activity from the morning meeting book, and it's called Ahoy Matey. And so everybody's pretending today that we are on a pirate ship. There is our captain, Captain Dog today. He is going to lead us. Now, to be able to play Ahoy Matey, remember that everyone needs to have that shared understanding. So we're all going to really put on those thinking caps, right? As a K2 teacher, I'm going to really help my students embrace this activity. We're going to start by saying Ahoy Matey, and all of my students are going to say Ahoy Matey. And you can stand at attention, you could even salute, or you can be the great pirate on my ship. Then I'm going to give you some commands. After each command, your response is Ahoy Matey, and then you're going to do the action. And then I'm going to invite some students to also be the captain, because this is a shared experience. Now, this activity is one that requires a whole group. You could also do this in smaller groups if you'd like to, but for time purposes today, we're going to do it as a whole group. If I was doing this in my classroom, I might have these commands on a poster so that students could easily remember them. I might have the students help me create some of the commands. It might be part of our group experience to come up with ideas that this shared experience could be around. And the purpose of this is to both follow directions, also coordination and focus, which is a really important skill for our young learners. So the commands today are Ahoy Matey. That means that you're going to prepare. All hands on deck means you're going to walk around your deck. So you can stand up and walk around, or you can just pretend. I will allow that for this early morning session. Swab the deck. Okay, everybody knows how to swab the deck. We're gonna cross our body, we're gonna hold onto that mop, and we're gonna swab the deck. For a person overboard, we're gonna look for that person. Oh no, they fell off of our ship, and we're gonna search for them. We're gonna search for them. This could be a great opportunity to say, oh no, we've lost Trisha. Find Trisha, and we can build in some community by repeating our students' names and searching for them as we pretend they went over deck. And then my last one is a lifeboat. A lifeboat gives you an opportunity to form a group of 4. And in a meeting, it can be pointing to people in my meet, if I could see my entire grid, or it could be calling out names of people who are in your group of 4 for your lifeboat. And so just to pretend, okay? Everybody ready? Let's see. Ahoy Matey. All right, I see some pirates ready to go. Swab the deck. Everybody's swabbing the deck. Everyone's swabbing the deck. Ahoy Matey. Ready? Person overboard. Search for them. Search for them. Where could they be? Oh no. Ahoy Matey. Lifeboat 4. I see my 4 friends. We've made a connection. We could start a conversation around this activity. we can build in ideas that relate to our content, or we can just get our bodies moving in the morning. I thank you guys for participating in Ahoy Matey. This is one of a million strategies to create a shared experience. You know, Pirate Week is coming up soon, and so I thought this was a fun way to kind of build in National Pirate Day. So something kind of fun to be able to do. Our next activity is more of a 3-5 activity, and this is going to be a build a silly sentence. This can easily be done whole group, smaller in groups or teams or partners, or this can be done individually. The idea of this activity is to brainstorm ideas related to a current subject. And so you can see our word list over there on the side. I pulled these straight from a benchmark unit. And we're going to assign students in partners to choose a word. You could do this in small groups and use breakout rooms similar to what we did earlier. But today we're going to just do this whole group. Everyone is going to choose a word to create a sentence. So if I was using the word city, I might say children with the word C, with the letter C, in with the letter I, there with the T, and yard with the Y. So I could say children in their yard, and I could make the word or the silly sentence from the word city. The idea is that you could take big words, small words, vocabulary words, words within a text, and pull them out and give students an opportunity to build silly words. If I was doing this in a small group, every student would have the opportunity to add in their own word, so the sentence could get very silly. If we were doing this as partners, we could do this. I choose a word, you choose a word, and together we're going to build a silly word, a silly sentence. Then you can come back to the group and share each other's silly sentences. You can partner up and have discussions about that, or you could have to use that sentence to start a story. Lots of different ideas for using silly sentence. This is going to really increase creative thinking, vocabulary, spelling, and connection to content. And so the idea of build a silly sentence is a great opportunity for students to have a routine or something that they practice, connecting with their colleagues and their peers. And this can be done again in partners, in small group, or even whole group as a model by the teacher. Now, we're not going to do this today just because we are going to run out of time, but hopefully it sparks an idea of how you can add silly sentences as a shared experience for your students. Some tips for success for this is to model them and try them out. Take one idea at a time and really scaffold these ideas for your students, making sure that they have the opportunity to practice them multiple times. If you run through shared experiences too quickly, they might not make as meaningful of an impact as if you did maybe every Monday we build a silly sentence, or maybe for an entire week we build a silly sentence. And so you get students to practice. Try to make sure that your activities fit your time. Like today we ran out of time and didn't really get the full experience. So choose activities that fit into the needs of your week, and then make adjustments to help keep your students motivated. Again, I showed you some ways to connect this to academics and make sure that they fit into collaboration ideas that you're already doing. And practice the activities. Allow your students to participate as leaders of the activities, and find ways to really build into their strengths, to find activities for your classroom experiences that have students really engaged in part of the process. So again, for our Google Keep, think of some activities that maybe you already do, some shared experience you might want to build in. Again, to these community meetings, what would a shared experience in your classroom look like? And go ahead and take 1 minute to add that to your Google Keep.
All right. And if you're finishing up that Google Keep note-taking, go ahead and come to the end of your thought. For time, we'll just go ahead and move on to the next slide. We do want to bring some light, some considerations and possible modifications as you begin to introduce community meetings. Either introduce or expand the practice of community meetings into your own classrooms. We used, obviously, virtual learning space to conduct all of these activities. And as you are still in the virtual setting, thinking about ways that you can use breakout rooms, the ways that you can mimic the more face-to-face tools that students used to use, like instead of doing a handshake or a high five in the physical classroom, how are we tweaking that, maybe using a virtual high five in this virtual space? Making sure that we're providing that adequate time to talk, as Rachel and Andrea mentioned. This can take a chunk of the day, right? This can take a big chunk of time, especially as we're introducing it. But this is time well spent, right? Because we know that this community building is going to be essential in terms of our students' whole group and individual academic success. As we move into small group or hybrid learning, thinking about ways that we can keep this safe for students, but also build in that connection between our roomies, the kiddos that are right in front of us, and our homies, the kiddos that are at home. And I stole those terms from another teacher because I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And making sure that it's not always just the virtual kids who are connecting to other virtual kids, and trying to think of ways to bridge that gap between students that are physically in front of us and students that are joining in from home. And right, these considerations will obviously depend on the tech tools you have available and your bandwidth, but just keeping that troubleshooting at the forefront of your mind. Making sure that we are grouping students in a way that maybe they have the same partner or same group all week, so they're able to kind of build that repertoire with each other over the course of the week. But also making sure that we're mixing up students occasionally so that students have the opportunity to connect with all of their peers. So let's jump into some of the theory. We've kind of been sprinkling that in as we go. A lot of this theory came from this wonderful book, The Caring Teacher. You can click on a picture of that book there in the slide deck, and it'll take you to a link to the publishing company. I actually first read this book in a book club with my colleagues, and it was such a wonderful book to read with a group of professionals. So as TLFs, you might consider, if you'd like to lead a book club, this might be a really great book to use. And in this book, just like we discussed in the last session, the authors talked about using student competence really as those building blocks for independence. And in our first session, we talked about cognitive competence and emotional competence. And today we're going to focus on social competence and physical competence. So social competence might look like students giving advice or a sincere compliment to a friend, maybe organizing a game or inviting somebody else to join an activity, or maybe contributing meaningfully to a group project. And we sprinkled in a lot of opportunities for social competence here during our community meeting. This is, again, a really great vehicle to foster those experiences. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment of reflection and drop into the chat, what were some of the ways that you, as students today, demonstrated social competence during this community meeting experience? How did you demonstrate social competence today? Conversations in breakout rooms, giving someone a sincere and meaningful compliment, sorry, taking turns when speaking in a group, listening to my peers, right? So I'm not just thinking about what I'm going to say, I'm actually listening to what my peer is going to say, and that's a skill that needs to be practiced. Contributing to the group, listening to others. Absolutely. Maybe sharing our ideas, having the confidence to speak in front of my peers, connecting to something my peer said and asking them for advice. Absolutely. There were lots of opportunities. Thank you for acknowledging that. I'm going to skip this next reflection question just for the sake of time, but maybe later you might consider that area of physical competence and how sometimes we maybe clump physical competence just into, or we compartmentalize it into the things that happen at recess or PE. But really encouraging us to sort of expand that definition to anything that is hands-on, right? So it could be throwing a ball or swinging on a swing. It could also be drawing a really beautiful illustration for a piece, for a writing piece, or maybe completing a science project, or gathering a collection of things in our home. And just like social competence is easily integrated into this community meeting space, that physical competence can really be drawn upon here as well. So we want to give you some reflection tools. Now, in our last session, we talked about looking at these these competencies and thinking about ways that we can foster new ways for students to experience success within each of these 4 competencies. And here on the left, if you click on that, it'll force you to make a copy. And this graph is inspired by some of the work in this Caring Teacher book. And this is just a self-assessment that a teacher could utilize so that they maybe chunk their day into sections and tally how many opportunities their students have in the areas of physical competence, cognitive competence, social and emotional competence throughout the day. This tally can maybe shed some light on, I noticed that my students are perhaps less engaged during math, or maybe aren't completing their independent math work to the degree that I would like them to. And this tally, this self-assessment, can maybe shed some light on why that might be happening. This might be something that a grade level team might choose to do together, or trusted teachers could maybe observe one another and provide that feedback. After completing the self-assessment and the reflection questions at the end, you might want to make a plan to integrate some more opportunities for student competence throughout your school day. And you can click on the link on the right or the picture on the right. Again, it will force you to make a copy of this plan to expand opportunities to build competence in your classroom. And I like this plan because the way it's structured, it gives you space to make a plan on some of those areas of competencies and how you're going to integrate them into your classroom. And also a space where you're going to plan out, how am I going to use verbal feedback to reinforce these skills in my classroom? So again, you are welcome to share those with the teachers you support as they continue to bring, expand on opportunities to build student competence in their classrooms. And I'm going to turn it over to Rachel for our last activity together.
Thanks, Anna. So we're going to spend pretty much the remainder of our time here building a collective scrapbook. So throughout this session, you've had opportunities to take some notes using Google Keep. We are going to now use those notes to add to our scrapbook here. So by the end of this session, you will hopefully have a ton of ideas of things that you could try in more community meeting from your peers. So we have some examples in here for you. There's the definition of each section as well as an example. So you only need to add one slide, contribute to one slide. On this first page here, you can click to jump to that section. But if you have an idea for a greeting, a sharing, or a shared experience, we'd like you to add that activity here so that we can share our knowledge with each other. And I'm going to give you, we'll call it 6 minutes so that we can make sure we wrap up and do some logistical things here at the end. Please note there is a space for pictures, but if that doesn't make sense for your activity, don't worry about it. We'd just love to hear about the strategy and a description. All right, though you may not quite be finished, I'm just going to share a few announcements as you're wrapping up. If you didn't finish, I encourage you to finish this slide. We will be having another session of this. So we will have participants in that session also add to this scrapbook. So I'm sure they will love to see your ideas, and make sure you return back to this or save this slide deck so that you can see the ideas that are contributed later on as well. I want to encourage you, we are sharing stories of TLFs and teachers around the district. It has been a hard year and you deserve to be celebrated. So if you have a story that you wouldn't mind sharing with us, you can scan this QR code to submit a Google form, or you can tweet at us at APS_TLN. We want to let everybody know how hard you've all been working this year and some of the obstacles that you've overcome. And next time at our April Summit, we are going to have Bright Morning attend for a couple, I believe it's 2 4-hour sessions, if I'm not mistaken, over the course of a couple days. So they are the authors. Elena Aguilar's company is Bright Morning. She is the author of Coaching for Equity, the book that you all received this year. So make sure to look for information on that in PowerSchool for the April Summit. And finally, thank you for joining us here today, for taking time out of your day to be here with us and to participate. Please make sure to take the PowerSchool survey. I know that's different than how we've done things in the past, but we really do read those surveys. We just decided to switch it to a different format. So all those annoying emails you're getting every day, they are reminding you to take that survey. And we would really appreciate some feedback so we can make sure these sessions are meaningful to you. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day of learning, and it was great to be here with you all.